Our top story this morning relates to the government's move on deeming rates for part pensioners, and this morning the minister concerned is keeping the door open for further changes to the deeming rate after the government's just announced the first cut since 2015.
Very significant move, and there was a lot of pressure on the government to be trying to address this, especially post the election, because so much of the focus was on things like franking credits. Now, joining us live to discuss this is Andrea Crothers, who's live from Parliament House. Andrea, what will the changes mean for pensioners?
Well, Annalise, under the changes, the deeming rate will fall from 1.75 to 1% for up to $51,800 for single pensioners, financial assets, and the first $86,200 for a couple. Now, for balances above that amount, it'll fall from 3.25% to 3%. So what does this all mean for pensioners? Well, for single pensioners, they'll pocket $31 extra a fortnight and will pick up a bit extra $804 annually. For couples, they'll be pocketing $40.50 extra per fortnight, pocketing up to $1,053 annually. Now, this will cost the budget $600 million over 4 years. Most pension groups have welcomed the changes. Well, some say they don't go far enough. There have been calls for an independent body to set the deeming rate, whilst the Greens want a Senate inquiry into the matter. Meanwhile, the government, the relevant Minister, Social Services Minister Anne Ruston, has opened the door for potentially further changes. Here's what she had to say.
Certainly, I'm more than happy to keep it constantly under review, but there will be certain things that happen in the marketplace that are more likely to trigger a need for us to make a change. If we don't see much change in movement in terms of returns on assets, there is probably no need for us to go back and look at it. But if we start seeing changes in the marketplace, then that probably should be the thing to trigger any change or any review.
And I think there's a bit of anger about it still out there in the community. I don't think it's been resolved. And I saw in the clip that you played a moment ago that the relevant minister was saying that they would keep things under review. Well, they've kept things under review now for years, and pensioners have been dudded that whole time.
Andrea, the deeming rate reduction done. Now there's a renewed push for some action on the New Start allowance.
That's right. The Council on Ageing has joined the chorus of calls for a boost to the New Start allowance. Currently, a single person can receive up to $280 a week on New Start. The calls are for $75 extra on top of that per week. Council of the Ageing's CEO, Ian Yates, says that this is particularly an important issue for older Australians.
We've been proposing changes, as has a raft of people, to New Start for a very long time. One of our principal concerns is that there's a kind of image that New Start's a short-term fix for mostly younger people. There are many hundreds of thousands of older Australians on New Start, and their average time is well over, in fact, over 2 years, and many people are spending 3 years or more.
The government, though, firming its resolve not to lift the New Start allowance.
The government's position remains unchanged in relation to New Start, but one of the things that I'm very, very keen to do is to work with my colleagues at the Department of Jobs as well as within my agency, because I have responsibility for the Disability Employment Service, is to make sure that we are putting in the best possible pathways so that people who currently are without a job, that we can get them back into the workforce.
I think that the concerns that have been raised about the adequacy of New Start are well-founded. We've said for some time now, in the lead-up to the last election in particular, that we don't think that New Start is adequate. We took to that election a proposal to review New Start because the dollars involved are quite large, and you want to make sure that you get all of the interactions with other payments and other programs right.
So Shadow Treasurer Jim Chalmers, they're not committing either way, saying that the New Start allowance isn't adequate, but says the ball remains firmly in the government's court. Kieran, Annalise.
Andrea, appreciate that. Another comment that we got from Jim Chalmers this morning was in relation to the meeting, more specifically the picture opportunity that was held between the RBA Governor and the Treasurer late last week. It's been described, or criticised by some, described as inappropriate. The Shadow Treasurer, Mr Chalmers, said it was in fact bizarre.
But I did think it was a bizarre picture opportunity. It's entirely appropriate for the government to meet with the Reserve Bank Governor and indeed to be seen in public, obviously, with the Reserve Bank Governor, but that was quite a bizarre picture opportunity. And what I think it says about Josh Frydenberg and about the Morrison government is that they have a media strategy. They can always get themselves in front of the camera. Their media strategy is to talk about Labor and dust off the old rhetoric about unions and red tape to try and distract from the slowing economy. But they don't actually have an economic policy to get the place growing in a sustainable way again.